Hey there, folks. Good afternoon. We are going live to Frankfurt right now, where some folks are coming together to advocate to promote a bill to eliminate taxes on menstrual products and also bolster funding for products in public schools. Let's listen in.
They're wonderful organizations that are supporting this work and have been doing this work for a long time. I want to just say that menstrual justice and period poverty are critical economic, public health, and mental health concerns. There's still a lot of shame and stigma around periods in our culture. And when menstruating students can't afford period products, or when their families have to choose between food and menstrual supplies, that shame is intensified. That too often results in students missing school and creates a vicious cycle for students living in poverty. To compound the issue, Kentucky is now in the minority of states that still profit from menstruation by taxing medically necessary period products. Our bill, supported by students across the state, as well as many organizations, would address period poverty and menstrual injustice by eliminating taxes on menstrual products and by guaranteeing that every menstruating public, middle, and high school student has full access to safe and clean period supplies. The bill would require a small investment that would pay big dividends for Kentucky students. So I mentioned the tremendous support for this initiative by students, and in fact, I have been contacted by students all across the state expressing their support for this issue. But I'm going to talk with you about one student in particular. Rosie Katz is a freshman at Henry Clay High School. Last year, as a middle schooler at Tate's Creek Middle School, Rosie decided she wanted to tackle the problem of period poverty head on and make a difference for her classmates. In January of last year, Rosie launched a GoFundMe. She raised more than $1,000, which was enough to buy thousands of tampons and pads, 2 free access dispensers, and art supplies to create colorful posters for the girls' bathrooms in her school. She said she wanted for girls walking into the bathroom to think positive things, not negative things, and for them to feel good about themselves. The feedback she got from her classmates was overwhelmingly positive. And Rosie saw the positive change that this made in her classmates' lives, and she committed to continuing the work into high school. Over the summer, she reached out to me to ask if I would work on a bill that would address the very real problem of period poverty across the Commonwealth. And of course, I'm honored to do this work. I'll say that Rosie was involved in every step of the bill drafting, and she has been a great partner in this work. Today's a school day, and sadly, she's not able to be with us today, but she did want to contribute, and she sent me a statement that I'm going to read on her behalf. So this is from Rosie. My name is Rosie Katz. I'm 14 years old and a freshman in high school. High school girls have a lot going on. Trying to find hygiene products shouldn't be another issue we have to deal with. Girls miss more days of school than boys, and some girls would rather miss school than go to school while menstruating if they lack access to hygiene products. 25% of girls say they've missed class because they didn't have access to products. Most girls feel stressed and embarrassed at school because they don't have access to hygiene products. I've experienced this firsthand, said Rosie, and have seen my friends and classmates dealing with this. The majority of students at my school are considered economically disadvantaged, and period products are expensive. Period products should be supplied in school bathrooms just like toilet paper is. I want girls at my school to feel empowered and able to focus on their goals and dreams rather than worrying about finding menstrual hygiene products at school. So a huge shout out to Rosie Katz. She's with us today in spirit, and her words are heartfelt. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Wilner. Next, we'll hear from Tamari Wilder, who is the Kentucky State Director of Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates.
Hi, thank you so much. Like you said, my name is Tamara Weeder. I'm the Kentucky State Director for Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates. I'm here today because menstrual supplies are not a luxury, but a necessity. I remember firsthand being a shy 13-year-old who got their period at school. Well, my mom told me about the menstrual cycle. I was one of those students who didn't have their stash of emergency products when I got my first period. I still remember being embarrassed and afraid to tell people. I actually didn't know where to go to get any supplies because the stigma at school was so pervasive. There were no pads or tampons in the bathroom, just wads of toilet paper that I had to keep changing as I counted down the clock to the end of that school day. What I don't remember is learning a lot that day. Instead, I was worried that people might find out my secret, that I was on my period and unprepared. The stigma and shame of having a period and not the products you need to deal with is a part of what most students experience. We know that 1 in 4 students who menstruate experienced period poverty in 2021. According to the Alliance for Period Supplies, without period products, these students are more likely to miss school. Before the pandemic, 4 in 5 teens reported that they have either missed class time or knew a classmate who missed class because they did not have access to period products. Student health, attendance, and overall concentration increases for students by simply providing free period products in public schools. Soap and toilet paper are already expected. It's time for students who menstruate to have the same access to these basic and necessary supplies. Providing menstrual products in all schools is common sense. It reduces disruptions and increases time spent in the classroom. But it also fosters gender equity and enables all students to attend class. Nearly 8 in 10 students recognize that lack of access to period products is a critical issue that people face, an issue that 76% say isn't discussed enough. When surveyed, 4 in 5 students believe they are taught more about the biology of frogs than the human body in school. Students want education on menstrual health that's holistic and covers biology as well as the policy issues surrounding reproductive health. Nearly 3/4 of students wish there were more vocal advocates talking about issues surrounding periods. That's why I'm proud to support Representative Wilner's bill today. Periods shouldn't be a reason young people panic. Our kids have enough to deal with these days. Let's not have a period add to their problems. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Heather Ayer, campaign coordinator of the ACLU of Kentucky.
Hi, everybody. My name is Heather Ayer, and I'm the campaign coordinator at the ACLU of Kentucky. Menstrual equity is a basic equity issue here in Kentucky and across the nation. We have regulated the provision of toilet paper and paper towels in public restrooms, and we should do the same for menstrual products. Menstruation is a natural occurrence experienced by over half of the population for much of their lives and should not be treated differently than any other basic bodily function. At the ACLU of Kentucky, we strive to do our work through a reproductive justice lens, and menstrual equity is no different. We agree with our partners at Sister Song who say, at the heart of reproductive justice is the right to maintain personal bodily autonomy. Without consistent access to sufficient menstrual products, people who menstruate may ultimately lack the ability to participate fully in society, and we know that this burden consistently falls hardest on Black and Brown Kentuckians. That's why the ACLU of Kentucky is excited to support this legislation and encourage Kentuckians from across the Commonwealth to get involved in the legislative process. You can get involved in several ways, including connecting with us or any of the organizations represented here today. Even on your own, you can travel to Frankfort to meet with your legislators and attend committee meetings. You can also call the LRC message line at 1-800-372-7181 to tell your legislators what you think of proposed legislation. You don't even need to know who your legislators are. You can give the operator your address and they will look up your representative and senator for you. It is vitally important to make your voice heard, not just during elections, although those are very important too, but also during the legislative process. We can organize for the future we want here in Kentucky, and that future includes menstrual equity. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Dr. Lori Grimes of the Kentucky Psychological Association.
Good afternoon. I'm Laurie Grimes. I'm a pediatric psychologist and I represent the Kentucky Psychological Association. And I'm glad to be able to lend my voice based in human development to this very important cause. Eliminating taxes on period products and increasing availability in public schools is an economic issue and a gender equality issue, but it has a mental health component and many psychosocial aspects that are so important to it that have actually already been elucidated by my colleagues behind me. But when access to these essential, necessary, not optional products is uncertain, the burden of managing normal bodily functions can be distressing and anxiety producing. Students unable to access products may miss school, miss work, miss extracurricular responsibilities and commitments, which brings a negative impact academically, employment-wise, personally, socially. These stresses can affect mood, motivation, self-concept, body image, and overall well-being. Easing the burden to these essential products, it recognizes that these essential healthcare needs and far-reaching negative impact that encumbered access to these products can bring. It's vitally important, and I cannot have said it any better than Rosie, I'm sorry. She hit on all of it from somebody who's living it. I could just say what Rosie said. She really elucidated the far-reaching impact from the analogy to other basic products like toilet paper and soap, as well as the missed school, choosing not to attend just for the anticipatory anxiety of what could happen if you arrive at school with inadequate supplies, and the impact it can have on your academic participation and other things that are in young menstruating women's lives. So from this standpoint, we are in full support of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we will hear from Tristan Perry. Tristan is a social work student at Kentucky State University.
Hi, my name is Tristan Perry. I'm a social work student at Kentucky State University, and through that program, I've been fortunate enough to work with the General Assembly for this legislative session. Representative Wilner asked me to speak today because I'm studying social work. Any social worker will tell you that our main goal is to ensure that one's basic needs are being met, regardless of gender, economic status, or income level. This legislation would help to meet that goal for the women of Kentucky. Menstrual products are necessary products for women's health. The pink tax is an unnecessary gender-based barrier to healthcare. It is time for us to come together and remove this barrier for people who menstruate. If we hope to move forward, everyone, including myself and other men, must be willing to have these conversations and normalize talking about the reproductive role of women instead of treating it as something to be ashamed of. It is not my role to speak for women, but I hope that more men will be willing to speak with women on such issues. I want to thank Representative Wilner for her tireless work on this legislation. It is appreciated and it does not go unseen. Thank you.
Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. Everyone behind me has said absolutely everything that needs to be known. This piece of legislation will certainly improve the overall quality of life for many individuals within the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And so we welcome the opportunity to continue to advocate for this issue. If time permits, I'm going to open the floor to any comments or questions that you might have for the individuals that spoke.
Can you talk a little bit about what conversations you've had with your colleagues in the legislature and what sort of, like, how receptive they are specifically in Republican supermajority to a bill like this?
Well, I'll say that the conversations have to start somewhere, right? And the question that I always get is, you're a Democrat, you're in the minority in a very large supermajority. Is this bill going to pass? I don't know the answer to that. I will say that I've had very productive conversations with colleagues across the aisle. I've spoken with members of the Appropriations and Revenue Committee, since this does include an appropriation to cover the cost of the supplies and restrooms across our schools. there have been some receptivity, and other, I think, frankly, embarrassment. That why is this an issue for us to be talking about? I think it's why it was so important to have Tristan's voice here, that this is a conversation for everyone to be having, not just women and girls. And I'm hoping that this moves the conversation forward, and that if we don't pass it this session, that we get closer to seeing passage. Thank you. Yes.
I noticed there was a similar bill, I think it was HB 64, that's already been filed by Representative Bonta. How does your bill differ from hers?
Representative Banta and I have worked together on bills in the past. I have not seen her bill, was not aware that she was going to file it. My understanding is that hers does eliminate the tax, so the same as this bill, but that hers does not include the appropriation or the requirement for middle schools and high schools to carry the products. Thank you.
Representative Wilner, right now, is there any funding for menstrual products in public schools? Is there anything allotted?
There is nothing that's required by the state. I do know that some schools that have FRISCs, the Friskies, the Family Resource and Youth Services Centers, some of them will budget it and include it, but not every school has a FRISC, and not every FRISC spends their money this way. So this would make it uniform in every school across the Commonwealth.
Those schools that are using some funds for it, are they seeing positive results with providing these products?
My understanding, and I'm not an expert in what, every school does individually, but my understanding, and from speaking with students, the typical scenario is that if you need a product, that you would have to go to the FRISC office, or you might go to your teacher and, whisper often, do you have anything? And of course, many teachers, as have been pointed out today, will buy supplies, have them in their own drawers. Some FRISCs will spend their allotted money for funds, but the students have to go seek them out. And when Rosie Katz and I were working with the drafter, one of the things that Rosie was absolutely adamant about was that at least half of the restrooms in the school would have these open access dispensers, or would have access to them, so that there's not the shame, that barrier, that extra step, that extra time that it takes to go ask an adult, whether it's in the Family Resource Center or whether it's a teacher, can you help me with this problem?
A report last fall from the Department of Education showed Kentucky students, 33% of them were considered excessively absent. Did that figure into the creation of this bill at all?
The absenteeism was a very important issue for Rosie when she brought this up, and she did the research. I actually had students here from Mercy Academy in Louisville last year who had done a tremendous amount of research on this subject, and they were talking about how absenteeism is contributed to by this issue. Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
What is the appropriation that you're asking for?
$2 million.
And is that annual?
Yes.
And has there been a study on the financial implications of removing the income tax, or the sales tax on products?
Yeah, when I filed the bill last year, and I should have that, and I don't, right off the tip of my tongue, so I'm sorry, but it was minimal, as you might expect. Does anybody else in the group know the?
I know like the averages. So the average person spends about $120 on menstrual products in their life, or a year, sorry. And then if you take the sales tax, it equals about $7.
So $7 per menstruating person per year. And I'm sorry, I don't have a better summary for you. Anything else?
Like you mentioned, Kentucky is now in the minority of states who tax
Correct.
products. One, is it frustrating that this tax still exists? And do you think there's a growing appetite in this state to finally eliminate this?
I think it's a fundamental injustice, right? I mean, this is a tax that affects roughly half, slightly over half of the population, and doesn't affect the other half. So it is frustrating that we are one of the states that continues it. I think the fact that there has been bipartisan interest in this issue, the fact that we're increasing the conversation, that we've expanded the bill that we filed from last year, I think we're moving forward on this issue, and I like to think we're moving closer to a solution. Anyone else?
Did you say this bill was being introduced today?
I will be filing the bill as soon as I'm able, once we are in session today, so it'll have a bill number. Skylar has a digital copy of the bill, and you should have her contact information. So if you want a copy of the bill before it goes online, you can reach out to her. And if there are no other questions, thank you all so much for your attention to this issue. I appreciate it. Thank you. Did you want to say anything concluding?
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks.